In the Acolyte, Darth Plagueis stands as the ultimate architect of the chaos taking shape. Though he remains largely unseen, his influence courses through every layer of the unfolding narrative, like a silent phantom manipulating events from the shadows. The brilliance of Plagueis in this series is not in his direct actions, but in the way his presence and teachings ripple outward, affecting those who come close to the growing darkness, yet remaining unaware of the true source of its power. Set in the closing days of the High Republic, the Acolyte paints the galaxy in vibrant hues of hope, stability, and unity under the Republic's watch. The Jedi, symbols of peace and protectors of the galaxy, operate at the peak of their influence, blissfully unaware of the lurking darkness that Plagueis has been carefully nurturing. In this period of prosperity, Plagueis is an unseen figure patiently waiting and manipulating, using his unique understanding of the Force and life itself to push events toward his vision for the Sith. To the Jedi, the Sith are nothing but ancient threats vanquished centuries ago, and their vigilance has grown complacent. But for Plagueis, this is the ideal time to exploit their overconfidence. In the Acolyte, Plagueis is a master not just of the dark side of the Force, but of subtlety. Unlike the more direct and aggressive Sith lords who revel in open conflict, Plagueis operates with a quiet sophistication, shaping individuals and events from a distance. The series reveals Plagueis as the invisible architect of unrest, a figure pulling the strings in the background and initiating disturbances that begin to crack the Republic's serene surface. Those disturbances are not merely random acts of violence or chaos, they are part of a carefully orchestrated plan, one that chips away at the Republic's foundation while quietly feeding Plagueis' insatiable quest for knowledge and control. Central to his role in the Acolyte is his influence on the mysterious crimes that the former Jedi Padawan and their estranged master set out to investigate. Plagueis understands that the Republic and the Jedi Order are held together not by the Jedi's strength or the Republic's stability, but by perception. This perception can be manipulated, twisted, and undermined through subtle acts of terror and corruption, sowing seeds of doubt within those who serve the Republic and the Jedi themselves. The crimes that the protagonists seek to unravel are not simply random acts of violence, but are carefully planned acts designed to disturb the peace and harmony that the High Republic prides itself on. Each mystery, each crime, is like a thread in Plagueis' grand design, a step in a complex plot to weaken the Republic and test the limits of the Jedi's vigilance. As the protagonists delve deeper into their investigation, Plagueis' teachings begin to take hold, whether they realize it or not. They are drawn into situations that challenge their perceptions of right and wrong, light and dark, creating a space for Plagueis' philosophy to seep into their thoughts. The former Jedi, a Padawan who once believed in the Jedi's ideals of peace and justice, begins to confront the complexities of moral ambiguity. For Plagueis, this is no accident. He has engineered these challenges to corrupt, to seduce, to shake their faith in the Jedi way. Every crime they uncover, every mystery they solve, draws them closer to the dark side's influence, nudging them along a path that Plagueis has meticulously planned. Plagueis' role is more than that of a passive manipulator. He is an alchemist, testing theories, conducting experiments, not with potions and elixirs, but with people and their beliefs. His knowledge of the dark side grants him a unique perspective on the Force, one that transcends the simple binary of good and evil. In his mind, the dark side is a tool to achieve transcendence and true understanding, a way to shape reality itself. This belief in the dark side's potential is not just an obsession for Plagueis, it is his purpose. In the Acolyte, this purpose manifests as he watches from the shadows, carefully selecting and testing those who come into contact with his influence. One of the most intriguing aspects of Plagueis in the Acolyte is how he taps into the Force in ways the Jedi have long forgotten or perhaps never understood. Plagueis is fascinated by the notion of immortality, the possibility of defying death and achieving eternal knowledge. He believes the dark side holds the key to this power, and his experiments, his manipulations, all serve this ultimate goal. The crimes, the corruption, the seeds of doubt, all are steps in his larger plan to challenge and redefine the natural limits of the Force. He views the galaxy as a laboratory, the people within it as specimens to be shaped and molded according to his will. For Plagueis, this series of mysterious events is as much an experiment in power as it is a strategy for destabilization. In these events, we see Plagueis' brilliance in manipulating individuals and institutions without them ever realizing they are under his sway. The High Republic, in all its grandeur, is his canvas, and his brushstrokes are invisible yet profoundly impactful. While the Jedi and the Republic see themselves as the paragons of light, Plagueis recognizes their weaknesses and understands how to exploit them. He does not need to confront the Jedi directly. Instead, he encourages doubts and fears to grow in their minds, allowing them to question themselves and each other. In this sense, Plagueis embodies the true danger of the Sith, the ability to corrupt from within without ever revealing oneself. The former Jedi Padawan and their master, as they journey through the corruption and chaos, are unaware that they are pawns in Plagueis' game. The Padawan's journey is particularly significant to him. Plagueis sees in them the potential to be molded into a vessel for the dark side, someone who could, perhaps unknowingly, become an agent of his will. As they confront the harsh realities of their investigation, they find themselves tempted by the power and freedom the dark side offers, a feeling Plagueis is careful to nurture. For Plagueis, the Padawan represents a test of his theories, a chance to explore how far he can push someone before they break and accept the darkness within them. Throughout the Acolyte, Plagueis' actions reveal a character who is not simply content with power, but who seeks to understand and redefine it. His approach is one of patience, of subtlety, of waiting for the right moment to make his influence felt. He embodies a kind of intellect and ambition that is far removed from the Sith Lords who came before him, driven not by anger or hatred, but by a cold, calculated pursuit of knowledge. Plagueis' role in the Acolyte is not one of overt domination, but of quiet cultivation, a nurturing of the seeds of darkness that he has planted throughout the galaxy. As the Acolyte unfolds, Plagueis' influence deepens, spreading across characters and events like an unseen web. He remains in the shadows, yet every action, every decision taken by the protagonists is subtly shaped by his unseen hand. As the former Padawan and their master delve further into the series of mysterious crimes, they encounter characters and situations that have already been touched by Plagueis' influence, though they remain oblivious to his existence. This anonymity is his greatest strength. He orchestrates chaos without needing to reveal his presence, manipulating events with an artistry that leaves no trace. To him, the Republic is not an enemy to be overpowered by force, but a vessel to be corrupted from within. As the protagonists encounter these corrupted individuals, they begin to witness the consequences of Plagueis' teachings. Many of these people, often members of the Republic or individuals once aligned with the Jedi, have been twisted by Plagueis' philosophy, although they may not even know his name. The dark side has found subtle ways to seep into their hearts and minds, making them susceptible to manipulation, ready to act on hidden fears, desires, or ambitions that the Jedi teachings would suppress. Plagueis understands that the Jedi's strict code and suppression of emotions can lead to an inner tension, one he can exploit to draw individuals toward darkness. For Plagueis, this is an experiment in the Sith philosophy of power through control, influence, and the ability to erode one's principles for the sake of gain. Through this influence, Plagueis is creating a ripple effect, a carefully controlled destabilization of the Republic and the Jedi Order. Each act of corruption or moral compromise is a small, seemingly insignificant step, but together, they build a foundation of mistrust and instability. The former Jedi and their master, tasked with bringing order to this chaos, find themselves increasingly at odds with each other as they struggle with their own doubts and beliefs. This division among the protagonists is, of course, intentional on Plagueis' part. He knows that true victory over the Jedi and the Republic lies not in brute force, but in fracturing the unity and trust that bind them together. One of the most compelling aspects of Plagueis' influence is the way he uses the Force to distort reality. Unlike the Jedi, who view the Force as a source of balance and guidance, Plagueis sees it as a tool for bending reality to his will. In the Acolyte, his presence is felt through subtle manipulations in the Force, which distort perceptions, create illusions, and alter emotions. This manipulation goes beyond traditional dark side powers. It's a refined, almost scientific approach to the Force, revealing his mastery in ways the Jedi cannot anticipate. The protagonists, though skilled in the ways of the Force, find themselves questioning their own senses, wondering if the truth they perceive is reality or a carefully constructed illusion. In this way, Plagueis turns the Force itself into a weapon, one that can unravel even the most disciplined Jedi. This aspect of Plagueis' character, the scientist of the dark side, shows how he uses knowledge as a weapon. His obsession with understanding the Force at a molecular, almost metaphysical level makes him uniquely dangerous. He's not interested in power for its own sake, but in achieving a higher state of existence through the dark side. This philosophical pursuit allows him to transcend the limitations of conventional Sith and Jedi thinking, giving him an edge in his quiet war against the Jedi. The crimes and corruption seen in the Acolyte are thus part of a larger experiment, a test of how far Plagueis can push the boundaries of life, death, and consciousness through his mastery of the dark side. As the former Padawan and their master grow more enmeshed in the chaos Plagueis has woven, they encounter allies and enemies alike who have been twisted by his philosophy. Some of these characters may even be unaware of the dark influence affecting their decisions, believing themselves to be following their own ambitions or protecting their own interests. This is precisely what Plagueis wants: to create a network of individuals who, while technically unaligned with the Sith, serve his interests unknowingly. He understands that true power comes from manipulation without detection, and the more people he can influence without direct contact, the closer he comes to achieving his ultimate goal. Among the protagonists, the former Jedi Padawan is the one most susceptible to Plagueis' influence. The Padawan, who begins the story with a strong sense of justice and loyalty to the Jedi Code, gradually finds themselves questioning these beliefs as they face moral complexities and ethical gray areas. Plagueis, watching from afar, sees in this Padawan the potential for darkness, an opportunity to prove his theory that even the purest Jedi can be seduced by the dark side. The Padawan's internal struggle becomes a focus for Plagueis, who sees their journey as a living experiment in the Sith doctrine of temptation and power. Through subtle manipulations, Plagueis orchestrates events that force the Padawan to confront the flaws in the Jedi Code. Situations arise where adherence to Jedi teachings would lead to failure, suffering, or injustice, challenging the Padawan to question the infallibility of their beliefs. This gradual erosion of faith is precisely what Plagueis hopes for, as he knows that a Jedi who doubts their path is already on the way to darkness. In Plagueis' eyes, this is more than just a test of the Padawan's loyalty. It's a means to confirm that the Jedi Order's foundations are weaker than they appear. If he can sway one Jedi, then he knows he can ultimately sway the galaxy. At the same time, Plagueis is careful not to rush the process. He understands that true conversion to the dark side must come from within. It must be a choice, a realization that the dark side offers freedom and knowledge that the Jedi cannot provide. This patience, this willingness to wait and let the Padawan come to the darkness on their own, is what makes Plagueis so insidiously effective. He doesn't push or force, he plants seeds of doubt and lets them grow naturally, allowing the Padawan to feel as though they are making a choice rather than being coerced. In this way, Plagueis ensures that his influence is permanent, that once the Padawan falls to the dark side, they will do so wholeheartedly, with no chance of redemption. As the Padawan's journey toward the dark side progresses, the relationship with their master begins to strain and fracture. The master, who holds steadfastly to the Jedi principles, begins to see changes in the Padawan, subtle shifts in behavior and belief that hint at a growing darkness. Plagueis, anticipating this rift, uses it to further isolate the Padawan, manipulating situations to create misunderstandings and mistrust between them. The master, while wise and skilled, is ultimately vulnerable to Plagueis' influence as well, as Plagueis exploits their concern for the Padawan and their rigid adherence to the Jedi Code. By creating this division, Plagueis demonstrates his understanding of the Sith concept of power through betrayal and isolation. He knows that the Jedi are strongest when united, but if he can turn one against another, if he can create doubt and suspicion, he can weaken them from within. For Plagueis, this is not just a strategy but a philosophical truth that true power lies in sowing division and chaos, making others do the work of destruction while he remains hidden. Through these subtle machinations, Plagueis transforms the protagonist's journey into a trial of faith, one that tests not only their loyalty to the Jedi, but their very understanding of good and evil. The former Padawan's descent into darkness is, in many ways, a reflection of Plagueis' mastery of manipulation. Without ever meeting them, without ever revealing his hand, he has led them toward the very path he designed. The Padawan's eventual fall, if it comes to pass, will be not just a victory for Plagueis, but proof of his philosophy that even the strongest Jedi can be corrupted if the right seeds are planted. As the Acolyte builds toward its climax, the former Jedi Padawan's journey toward the dark side accelerates, bringing them ever closer to becoming an unwitting instrument of Darth Plagueis' vision. By this point, Plagueis' influence has become like a dark current running beneath the surface of every action the Padawan takes, every decision they make. The Jedi's path has splintered, and with each passing moment, the Padawan is drawn further from the ideals they once cherished. This is the quiet triumph of Plagueis to erode the light without ever revealing himself, to turn the Jedi's own strengths like compassion and duty against them, twisting them into tools of their undoing. Plagueis' control extends not only through the protagonists, but also into the structure of the Republic itself. By subtly guiding those in power, he is able to influence policy, create dissent, and foster corruption in ways the Jedi cannot foresee. In the Acolyte, Plagueis is not content with simply corrupting a single Jedi or manipulating a few individuals. His ambition reaches into the highest echelons of the Republic, subtly weakening its foundation by exposing flaws and fractures in its political machinery. The once unified government, a beacon of hope and peace, begins to show cracks as tensions rise, fueled by subtle provocations that Plagueis has set into motion. This manipulation of the Republic's leaders highlights a critical element of Plagueis' character in the Acolyte, his understanding that true power is wielded not just by the strong but by those who understand the value of patience and strategy. To him, the Jedi's devotion to light and justice is both their strength and their weakness. While they operate in the open, relying on their visible power and influence, Plagueis moves in the shadows, using misdirection and subterfuge to avoid confrontation. In a galaxy where the Jedi are celebrated as heroes, he understands that remaining unseen grants him a unique advantage. By the time the Jedi realize the danger, it will be too late. As the Padawan continues down this path, Plagueis' teachings resonate more strongly within them, even as they remain unaware of his existence. Every test they face, every encounter with moral ambiguity, draws them further away from the Jedi's teachings and closer to Plagueis' philosophy. In a particularly poignant moment, the Padawan is confronted with a choice that would force them to sacrifice their principles to save lives. It's a dilemma crafted by Plagueis, designed to challenge their perception of the Force and push them toward a pragmatic view of power. They begin to question whether the Jedi's dogmatic adherence to the light side truly serves the greater good, or if perhaps a more flexible approach might better serve the galaxy. This creeping doubt is the first step toward their inevitable fall. The Master, however, senses the dark changes within the Padawan. As they attempt to bring their apprentice back to the light, the rift between them widens, their relationship strained by mutual mistrust. Plagueis has carefully orchestrated this outcome, understanding that the Jedi's bond is their greatest strength and that breaking it is the key to victory. He orchestrates a series of events that force the Master to question the Padawan's loyalty, subtly placing them in situations that make the Padawan's actions appear suspect. The Jedi Code, with its rigid constraints, begins to feel like a prison to the Padawan, a limitation rather than a guide, and the allure of freedom offered by the dark side becomes harder to resist. This division reaches a critical point when the Master, desperate to prevent the Padawan's fall, confronts them in an intense showdown. This moment is a testament to Plagueis' cunning. He has orchestrated not a physical confrontation with the Jedi, but an emotional and ideological one. The Master, bound by the Jedi Code, believes in redemption and the possibility of saving their Padawan, while the Padawan, under the influence of Plagueis' teachings, views this confrontation as an obstacle to their own perceived liberation. This ideological clash embodies Plagueis' goal of breaking the Jedi from within, using their own beliefs to turn them against each other. As this conflict escalates, the Padawan begins to experience visions, illusions crafted by Plagueis to further cloud their judgment. These visions present them with glimpses of the power they could wield if they fully embraced the dark side, showing them scenes of themselves leading armies, wielding unparalleled power, and even defeating their master. These visions are not random. They are carefully designed to appeal to the Padawan's deepest desires, to awaken a thirst for power that they have long suppressed. Plagueis understands that the most effective way to draw someone into the darkness is to offer them a taste of what they could achieve, to make them believe that the dark side is the path to their true potential. At the same time, Plagueis ensures that these visions are laced with just enough doubt to make the Padawan question their sanity. They begin to feel as though they are caught between two worlds, no longer certain of where they belong or what they believe. Plagueis exploits this vulnerability, using the visions to reinforce the Padawan's sense of isolation, to make them feel as though they are alone in their struggle. He knows that isolation breeds desperation, and desperation is the path to darkness. By isolating the Padawan emotionally and spiritually, he prepares them to make the final choice willingly, believing it to be their own decision. In these moments, the Acolyte reveals the depth of Plagueis' understanding of the dark side. To him, darkness is not a weapon wielded with brute force, it is a gradual descent, a seductive pull that leads one to abandon all that they once held dear. Plagueis uses the Force not to dominate the Padawan's will, but to subtly guide it, to plant the seeds of doubt and ambition that will ultimately drive them to embrace the darkness. His approach is methodical, almost scientific, as he experiments with the limits of influence and temptation, testing the boundaries of what the dark side can achieve without direct confrontation. The culmination of this manipulation comes when the Padawan finally succumbs to the lure of the dark side. In a pivotal scene, they abandon the Jedi code, choosing instead to pursue power as an end in itself. This moment is not marked by anger or hatred, but by a cold, calculated decision to reject the Jedi's teachings in favor of the freedom and strength promised by the dark side. It is the realization of Plagueis' philosophy, the embodiment of his belief that even the most loyal Jedi can be turned if they are given a reason to doubt. The Padawan's fall is not an act of passion, but one of reason, a calculated choice to embrace a path that they now believe will lead them to a greater understanding of the Force. At this point, Plagueis' role in the Acolyte is complete. The Padawan has become a tool of his will, a pawn in his larger scheme to weaken the Jedi and prepare the galaxy for the Sith's return. This victory is more than just the corruption of a single Jedi, it is a proof of concept, a validation of his belief that the Jedi's strength is an illusion, one that can be shattered with the right combination of doubt and temptation. Plagueis has not only created a new Acolyte for the dark side, but has laid the groundwork for the eventual fall of the Jedi Order itself. As the series draws to a close, the audience is left with the chilling realization that Plagueis' influence has only begun to unfold. The Padawan's fall is but the first step in a long game, a prelude to the grand design that will eventually bring about the rise of the Sith and the fall of the Republic. Plagueis remains unseen, a shadow on the fringes of the galaxy, but his legacy is set in motion. Through his manipulation, he has proven that the greatest threat to the Jedi is not an external enemy, but the darkness within their own hearts, a darkness he has carefully nurtured and unleashed. As the Acolyte hints at the far-reaching, ruthless designs of Darth Plagueis, one aspect remains inevitable: his complete disregard for loyalty or attachment, even toward those who serve his purposes. For Plagueis, allies, protégés, and even promising acolytes are simply tools, expendable assets that are cast aside once they no longer serve his ultimate goal. Plagueis' interest in the former Padawan and their master, or any others who unknowingly advance his plans, is coldly pragmatic. To him, each is a piece in a grand game, valuable only as long as they play their roles in the shadowed symphony he orchestrates. Once the former Padawan has fully succumbed to the dark side, embracing its twisted allure and, unknowingly, Plagueis' vision, they become less of a subject of interest and more of a loose end. Plagueis understands the nature of power and the volatility of Sith apprentices. He knows that an acolyte who has tasted the power of the dark side might someday seek to challenge him or pursue their own ambitions. In the Sith tradition, Plagueis operates with a singular rule: eliminate potential threats before they rise. No matter how well they served his purpose or how deeply they fell into darkness under his guidance, they too are destined to be disposed of. For Plagueis, power must be absolute and undivided. Any hint of rebellion or autonomy among those who learn from him represents a threat that cannot be tolerated. His calculated manipulation of the Padawan, which led them to abandon the Jedi path and embrace the dark side, was never intended to create a true partner in his schemes. Instead, it was a test of his methods, a way to prove his ability to turn Jedi against themselves and use them to further the Sith's hidden goals. Once the Padawan has served this purpose, demonstrating the effectiveness of Plagueis' strategy, they have nothing left to offer him. In the Acolyte, Plagueis' method for disposing of his own acolytes is neither dramatic nor fueled by rage. There is no desire for spectacle, rather, it is a clinical decision, as impersonal as the severing of a loose thread. The Padawan, or any others who might have fallen under his influence, are eliminated with swift efficiency, often without realizing, until the final moments, that they were nothing more than expendable pawns in a much larger game. Plagueis is not driven by a need for vengeance or betrayal. To him, this culling of potential rivals is a simple matter of pragmatism, a necessary step in ensuring his own safety and the purity of his designs. This merciless disposal of those he manipulates reveals the darker philosophy underpinning Plagueis' worldview. For him, life is inherently transient, a mere resource to be harnessed, manipulated, and, ultimately, discarded. Even his obsession with conquering death and achieving immortality serves only to deepen this detachment. As he seeks to transcend mortality, Plagueis views others as insignificant, bound by the limitations he aims to overcome. The very beings he corrupts, turns, and ultimately destroys are no different to him than tools, temporary, replaceable, and valuable only insofar as they serve his agenda. The final fate of the former Padawan, who falls fully into Plagueis' carefully laid trap, is a stark testament to this philosophy. Though they may believe themselves to be powerful, having embraced the dark side and distanced themselves from the Jedi ideals they once held dear, they are, in truth, already defeated. Their embrace of the darkness does not elevate them, it only makes them more susceptible to Plagueis' whims. In his eyes, their transformation is complete, and therefore their usefulness is at an end. The series portrays this ruthlessness with chilling clarity, as Plagueis erases them from existence as casually as one might discard a broken tool. What makes Plagueis' inevitable betrayal even more chilling is the way he preys upon the ambitions and weaknesses of those he corrupts. He knows that the dark side, seductive as it is, creates a dependency, a hunger for more power, one that blinds its victims to the danger they face. The Padawan, drawn in by the allure of the dark side, believes they are ascending to a greater understanding, a higher level of power. Yet in truth they have merely become ensnared in Plagueis' web. He cultivates this dependency, knowing that those addicted to the dark side's power are easily controlled and ultimately easy to dispose of. Even Plagueis' relationships with potential Sith apprentices, such as the future Darth Sidious, follow this pattern. In the Acolyte, the Padawan may serve as a prototype, a stepping stone in Plagueis' experiments in manipulation, paving the way for future apprentices who will serve him more directly. But Plagueis never loses sight of his own supremacy. To him, even Sidious, his eventual protege, is someone to be carefully watched, controlled, and, if necessary, eliminated. Plagueis harbors no illusions about loyalty or camaraderie. The Sith doctrine of betrayal is not merely a risk, it is a certainty, an inherent aspect of their power structure, one that he is fully prepared to turn against any who might dare to challenge him. In the grand scheme, Plagueis' willingness to discard or destroy his acolytes reinforces the Sith's dark view of power as a solitary pursuit. He believes that true mastery of the dark side is achieved alone, unburdened by loyalty or attachment. Anyone who shows potential or power must either submit completely to his control or be removed. Plagueis is not interested in creating a legacy of followers, he seeks only to achieve his ultimate vision for the Sith, one in which he reigns supreme and unchallenged. His vision of power does not include sharing or compromise, only dominance and control. Thus, in the Acolyte, Plagueis' final act of betrayal becomes the ultimate expression of his philosophy. For him, the destruction of the Padawan, or any other acolyte who has served their purpose, is not an act of cruelty but of efficiency. They were always meant to be tools, and tools are discarded when they are no longer useful. This ruthless pragmatism, this absolute dedication to his own survival and supremacy, is what defines Plagueis as one of the most formidable Sith lords. He operates not with the fire of rage, but with the cold logic of inevitability, seeing betrayal and destruction as necessary sacrifices on his path to ultimate power. In the end, the Acolyte reveals that Plagueis' true power lies not in brute force, but in his ability to orchestrate the lives and deaths of others with calculated indifference. His acolytes, his proteges, and even his allies exist only as extensions of his will, expendable pieces in a game that only he understands. For Plagueis, there is no room for sentiment or loyalty. There is only the pursuit of the dark side's secrets and the ambition to rule without challenge. This chilling approach makes him a figure of ultimate isolation, a dark lord who sees all life as a resource, to be used and discarded at his discretion. In Plagueis' galaxy, betrayal is not a possibility but an inevitability, and those who serve him do so under the shadow of their own destruction, unaware that their loyalty and power are nothing but preludes to their own end.